Hey everybody, how quickly can we go around and talk about everything that's growing? Let's find out and do a garden update. We're going to start here in the side garden. You can see there's a lot of plantain coming up and things like that, but you can also certainly make out the peas and the comfrey. The peas are growing really well. They're going to start shading out a whole bunch of stuff here soon, and the comfrey has gone to flower. So that's really exciting. We've also got all sorts of grapes starting to leaf out. And down here on the Concord grape, we're even starting to see bunches of flowers that are just getting ready to pop just as soon as they fill out. So it's not going to want to focus for me, but there's a bunch, and there's a bunch, and there's a bunch, and there's a bunch, and there's a bunch of bunches. So pretty excited about that and hoping to have a good grape season. On the inside of things, this is the oregano. There's one on either end, and but I tell you, I probably have a yard of oregano if I don't keep control of this. And things are starting to come up on the inside. I come through here about once a week, weed out what I don't want there, but you can certainly start to make out a whole lot of little herbaceous plants that are starting to make their way and grow out. So this actually is the hardest garden for me to remember to make sure I water. So these little guys that are growing, these are the survivors. They're doing a bang up job growing. I had brought you all along for the other flower garden that we did, but this is actually the really shady spot, the north side of our house, and we planted this with a whole bunch of coleus, and that's a bleeding heart plant there, and some impatiens. I forget, that's a specific type of impatient. Now it's escaping me. Maybe it's African or Mexican, or I don't know, some kind of foreign impatient, and it's supposed to do really well in full shade. So we'll see how that goes. And then the whole thing is topped off by a forsythia, which I had always wanted to have, and I'm pretty excited that next year we'll have a big old yellow bush right here. But anyway, these are all just like before. These are all interplanted with a whole bunch of shade-loving wildflower seeds. So look for this to just be a big old splash of color, maybe late this year, definitely next year. We've also got some calla lilies here on the corner, and this comes, we're right in front of the deck now, and this side is capped off by an encore azalea, a big purple azalea to fill up this corner. So this is a pretty diverse thing. We've also got some shade loving herbs in here. We've got parsleys, we've got things that will grow in shade like chives and things like that as well. So it's not just going to be for looks. There's going to be some edibles scattered around in here too. These ferns are from off on the property. Never transplanted fern before. Don't know how well it'll take. A couple of the leaves died off, but it looks like it's going to head and still putting out new leaves. So we'll see how that goes over time. This is where the horse's round pen was. And not to make too light of a very terrible situation, but we don't want to just leave the corral up not knowing when we'll have another horse. So we're going to make use of this space this year and turn it into a really big melon and squash patch. So watch for that. Right now it has just been tilled to get it ready for planting, and we'll come back and actually plant it at a later date. I've already got some seeds started so we can get some plants in the ground first, and when we put the plants in, we'll also put some seeds in so that we get a second harvest and maybe more after that as well. So big melon and squash field. Here is the area that you saw me plant with the kids. It's really hard to get up on this and really show you, but you can see maybe here. Let me see if I can get her to focus. I think you can see a little bit of green there, can't you? Sure you can. We're getting some of the seeds to come up. That's actually quite a lot more than that. Obviously that's just one tiny little section, but All the transplants seem to be taking hold, except for the sweet bush. That stick right there in the middle back there was a sweet bush, and I don't see any green coming out of it anymore. So that's a bit disappointing. But hey, look at this. I was just out here yesterday and didn't notice this. Looks like we've got some of the lilies starting to come up right at the edge of the shade right there. And it looks like we got some of the, oh, what is that going to be? That's going to be the gladiolas, I believe, peeking out over there. Here looks some more. I think this is more lily down here. So I think this is coming along with the hay on it. We set off that sprinkler about every other day or so, run it for about 10 minutes, not very much. And probably won't run it again this week because we're expecting rain. But I'm pretty happy. It's coming along good. I just got to keep the darn power company from spraying until I have pretty flowers, so they know better. Well, if you were wondering whether you could really grow corn in a container, I can promise you this much. You can germinate it. That's how all that purple corn is coming up. I'll thin this a little bit, especially those ones right up against the edges. Those aren't going to grow well at all. But right now, I'm really excited just to have that much of an ability to pick which ones I want to prune or not. So I'll probably let these grow for about another 3 weeks before I decide which ones to prune out, see who's going to win. So seemed like the major opinion was that we'll get purple. We planted purple, we'll get purple. I am actually personally leaning towards the fact that we'll get lots of colors. I think that the genetics are going to all come back out. And that just because the seed was purple doesn't mean that that's what the genes on the inside of the seed are going to produce. Because that purple seed was there out of a field of a whole bunch of other colors. So I think it's going to go back. I actually hope that I'm wrong and all of you are right, and I hope they come out all purple. I think that would be really, really cool. I just noticed the wind was blowing, and of course I'm shooting this with my cell phone and not my regular camera, and I get used to having this lapel, so I apologize if the wind's affecting the video at all. Let's go to the coup de grace and talk about the big garden. Alright, so we got several rows here. This first row are different onion sets. I'd have to look at the labels, but I believe these are red onion. And then right about in the middle here is a little blue flag, and everything on this side is a sweet yellow onion. All of these were done from sets, or, well, yeah, I've always been confused about that. Tell me the difference between onion sets that are actually plants, like bare root plants, and onion sets that are actually the bulb. Everybody always terms both of them sets, but maybe you know the right terminology. Either way, these are all coming up pretty good. I have put down some bone meal, try to encourage root development. I hope they bulb up okay. But you can see I haven't really weeded around them. I just hadn't done it. That's all there is to it. Potatoes, this area is where the dogs kept playing. And they just, whatever was going to grow there is not going to grow there now. But otherwise, the potatoes are coming up all over. Let me get down here and shoot you a long view. There we go. So I've got red and yellow potatoes, and if anything else, we'll be eating sauteed onions and roasted potatoes. So that's what that is. Now these two rows here that you can tell were freshly tilled were supposed to be lettuce and carrots, but not a single one came up. And I think it was a mechanical and user error between me and that garden seeder. You really have to have specific plates for each type of seed that you're using. And because I was trying to use just a generic seed plate, I kept running into a problem with the garden seeder clogging up. And I think I went these entire 2 rows without using any seed. I don't think anything got planted. So I've gone through here and tilled them up and partially replanted them. The 2 fences on the back row there and way over there are 2 different varieties of tomatoes. These ones are my favorite, the yellow pears, and down there are just some regular heirloom beefsteaks. for slicing up for my mater sandwiches. I've also got some different squashes on the ground here. We've got some crookneck squash and some zucchini. And then this trellis here is for the cucumbers. Let me try to navigate this row of taters. We've got slicing cukes and pickling cukes. So that's what's going up on that trellis. And then the rest of these rows will be used for successional planting. We'll come back in here later with more squashes and things like that and extend our harvest. So that's what's going on there. And then in the back 2 rows, the obvious winner are the sugar snap peas. They're climbing right up that trellis. But the 2 that we left on their own devices, you know, folks, I gotta tell you, I know it's not going to sit well with some people, but I really wish I had tilled this again. I did not till this early in the spring. I used my double wheel hoe and broke it up enough so that I could plant. But I believe if I had tilled it, I would have done a much better job keeping up with the weeds, and I would have got much healthier and larger plants by this time. I just wish I had. Now I'm really excited with how things are going down here with the potatoes, having covered them up in straw. It's keeping the weeds at bay and it's keeping the water in, just like Ruth Stout would have told you. So I think there's a combination of things that'll change next year with this big plot. But for now, peas, tomatoes, squashes, cucumbers, potatoes, and onions. Okay folks, so that's what's going on with the garden. If you've got any particular questions or tips or advice, you want to offer your 2 cents, I won't shy away from it. Tell me what you think. I know some of you are dead set against any kind of tilling, and I respect that. So how do you plant and deal with the weeds in your area? Do you just use the deep mulch? I know I've got a lot of devout back to Eden gardeners that are on the channel. So offer your opinions. I'm not here to tell you that my way is the only way to do it. I'm here to tell you how I am doing it and whether or not it works. So tell me what works for you down in the comments below. If you have your own YouTube channel, don't forget to leave a link to show people how you're doing it so that they can go over there and take a look at it for themselves. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.